What is good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode brought to you by the League FFB. By now, you guys have already seen our Cornerstone quarterback rankings. You've seen the running back rankings for our Cornerstone pieces. And today is going to be part 3 of all of the positions. We are going right into everybody's favorite fantasy football position. It is those young, elite wide receivers that we build these dynasty rosters around. So today we are going to be talking about those dynasty cornerstone wide receivers. The criteria for a cornerstone wide receiver in today's rankings are going to be players that are 25 years of age or younger at the start of this NFL season. So with that being said, let's not waste any more time. Let's hop right into today's video and let's start talking about these wide receivers. So just like we've been doing with the other ones, you guys know all of the tiers. You guys know that we start from the bottom and we work our way to the top. So starting in the D tier, there's one player in this tier. Now, obviously, there are lots of players that could be eligible for this tier, but in the top 15 wide receivers, this is the only guy that is in the tier, and that guy is going to be Zay Flowers. So Zay Flowers, we obviously like Zay. He had a very solid rookie season. Obviously, I think the elephant in the room for Zay Flowers and why I don't feel comfortable moving him any higher than this, although he is a cornerstone piece, most of his production did come when Mark Andrews was off of the football field in 2023. So I would like to see Zay Flowers produce a little bit more with Mark Andrews on the field, kind of establish himself as the 1B in this offense if he's not going to be the 1A alongside Mark Andrews. So I would like to see that out of Zay Flowers. But when you look at Matt Harmon's reception perception, you look at the success rates that Zay Flowers had as a rookie, everything that you want to see. He succeeds against man and zone. So all in all, Zay Flowers, very solid wide receiver for our dynasty teams. I think he is more so likely a wide receiver 2 that probably has a capped ceiling. I don't know if he has top 12 type of upside unless Mark Andrews is off the football field. That is probably the only time that we've seen it. But for now, I think a wide receiver 2 that doesn't really have the ceiling of a wide receiver 1. Now, moving on up to the C tier, there are 4 players in this tier that I want to talk about. We're going to talk about Nico Collins. We're going to talk about Devonta Smith. We're going to talk about Jaylen Waddle, and we are going to talk about Rome Odunze. So all of these players, obviously young, we don't have to talk about that much more, but you'll notice that all 3 of these guys here on the back end, Jaylen Waddle, Devonta Smith, Nico Collins, all of these guys have got new contracts. They've got new paydays. They're making a lot of money to remain with their current NFL rosters. Now, Jaylen Waddle, the number 2 wide receiver to Tyreek Hill. Devonta Smith, the number 2 wide receiver to A.J. Brown. Nico Collins, 1A, 1B. I don't really know where we're going to see Nico Collins. I think he's probably the number 1 in this offense. So there is a lot to like about all of these guys. The fantasy football ceilings are high, but I would say that with most of these guys, specifically the 3 that we've talked about, they're all going to be fairly inconsistent because they have elite options next to them. And you can even say the same thing with Rome Odunze, right? DJ Moore next to him, even Keenan Allen next to him, probably in the slot, Rome on the other side of the football field. So all of these guys, they are going to be inconsistent, but they are elite players. I think they all have the tools. All of them have the characteristics that you want to see out of number 1 wide receivers. They just don't have the opportunity on their current football fields. And so because of that, they are going to have capped ceilings as well. Not as capped as Zay Flowers, because I think these guys are all more talented than a guy like Zay Flowers, but they all have some stability. And I think that Rome Odunze has the highest ceiling of all of these guys if things go his way. You have him coming in as a rookie with Caleb Williams. He could potentially grow that rapport where you see that rookie quarterback and that rookie wide receiver kind of coming together like we saw with CJ Stroud and Tank Dell last year. That could be something very beneficial to Rome Odunze, but I think all of these guys are very good players. They all kind of have that wide receiver 1 spike week, but they have all kind of been pushed into that wide receiver 2 role for the most part on their current NFL offenses. But we like all of the offenses that these guys are in, so they're going to be higher end producers for our fantasy football teams, but we don't have to pay those elite wide receiver 1 numbers for these guys. So now we will move on up to the B tier. In the B tier, I have a couple different players. We have Chris Olave, Malik Nabers, and Drake London in this tier. Now, this tier, unlike the one below, these guys are the number 1 wide receivers on their team. They're the clear-cut number 1 wide receivers on their team, and we expect these guys to give us wide receiver 1 numbers. That is what we are drafting them to do. That is what they're going to be expected to do. Now, Drake London, obviously a riser this offseason. You get the quarterback upgrade with Kirk Cousins. Now you have that stability at the quarterback position, and you hope that Drake London will get the target share. He already has the talent. He's shown us the talent. In fact, he's kind of produced similar numbers to a guy like Garrett Wilson with similar to maybe even worse quarterback play in his time here in Atlanta. Now, I think he is going to be a top 12 fantasy football wide receiver this year. He is a guy that I'm very comfortable building my rosters around. I want to draft him as my wide receiver 2. You probably can't draft him as your wide receiver 2 anymore, but I feel the most comfortable with him as that number 2 because I think if he takes that step forward, he can be a number 1, but at worst, he is a number 2 wide receiver for fantasy football. Now, Malik Nabers, he has some quarterback question marks. I think that's why a lot of people are kind of fading Malik Nabers, at least in 2024, because you look at the talent, he is as good as it gets when it comes to a rookie going into the NFL, and the target share should be massive for Malik Nabers, but you got Daniel Jones at the quarterback position. Maybe Daniel Jones steps forward. Maybe he takes some advancements and then he kind of improves as a quarterback. It's probably not going to be the long-term answer for the New York Giants, unfortunately. I know that they've paid him, probably not going to happen, but Malik Nabers, he feels very much like what Drake London has been over the last couple of years, or what Garrett Wilson has been over the last couple of years. One of those elite talents, doesn't have the quarterback, but he is going to float around this range, maybe dip down a tier or rise a tier depending on how he performs as a rookie, but he should float around here for the next couple of seasons. And when that quarterback upgrade comes, because it will come eventually, he is going to be one of those guys that we expect elite numbers from, because the talent tells us that he can be a high-end wide receiver 1 for fantasy football. But right now, opportunity is going to speak. There's really nobody else in this New York Giants offense. I mean, you talk about potential options that they could throw to: Jalen Hyatt, Theo Johnson. I think Darren Waller is going to retire here. It's not been official, but I think he's going to retire. Saquon Barkley's out of town. They're going to have to rely on Malik Nabers to have this offense up and running. So I like Malik Nabers a lot here. And then Chris Olave, same thing, right? Wide receiver 1 in his offense. Rashid Shaheed there. Michael Thomas not there anymore. You have guys like A.T. Perry, Juwan Johnson. They're going to have to rely on Chris Olave, but just like the Daniel Jones situation, they have a Derek Carr situation there in New Orleans. So if there is a quarterback upgrade, maybe Spencer Rattler comes in eventually, and maybe Spencer Rattler shows that he can be a competent NFL quarterback. I don't know if he's going to be one of those guys that's going to be the answer for the New Orleans Saints, but Derek Carr is fine. Chris Olave should see the target share. We just want to see that high-end production, and Olave hasn't given us that high-end production yet in his career. He's given us some wide receiver 2 years, but we want to see that wide receiver 1 year. We need to see that wide receiver 1 year, and I think that because of the opportunity that these 3 guys have, they're just as talented as the guys below, maybe a little bit more talented than the guys below. That's probably debatable, but the opportunity that they have just puts them up just a tiny bit more, so that's why they're here in this B tier for us. Now, moving on up to the A tier, we are going to see 2 names in this list. It is going to be Garrett Wilson and Puka Nacua. Now, I feel like this tier specifically is one of the more polarizing tiers in wide receiver rankings in Dynasty fantasy football, period. Because you have half of the people that say Garrett Wilson is an elite prospect, but he has never shown us the type of production that Puka Nacua showed us as a rookie. And then there's going to be the people that say Puka Nacua, he was elite, but it was on volume early on. He also doesn't have the draft capital, yada, yada, yada. There's 2 sides to this coin. People are going to make those arguments. My stance is that both of these guys are elite options at the wide receiver position for your Dynasty fantasy football rosters. Depending on the direction that you want to go with your roster, you can take either of them. I don't mind which one you go with. We do know that Puka Nacua, he is going to be this option for Matthew Stafford in this offense for a long time, even when Cooper Kupp is gone. Now, Cooper Kupp is still going to be there. Cooper Kupp is still going to get his over the next couple of seasons while he is still playing here with Matthew Stafford. That is fine. There's room for both of those guys to eat in this offense. I do think that Garrett Wilson, with Aaron Rodgers under center this year, should take a major step forward. So the production between these 2 guys, and it might be a hot take, let me know in the comments below if you think that's a hot take, but I do think that Garrett Wilson and Puka Nacua's production might not be that far off from each other here in 2024 if Aaron Rodgers is fully healthy and plays the entire year. Now, that is a big if, because we've been waiting on the quarterback for Garrett Wilson. We've seen him perform pretty decently with guys like Zach Wilson, Tim Boyle, Mike White. Not a lot of great quarterback play there, but he has still performed for fantasy football teams, or at least given us enough to where his value has stayed afloat. I think we need to see Garrett Wilson take that elite step forward with Aaron Rodgers under center this year. And then obviously there's going to be some long-term questions about who is the long-term answer at the quarterback position here. I guess the same argument can be made for Puka Nacua as well. Matthew Stafford probably going to play longer than Aaron Rodgers, but he still doesn't have that much time left either. But both of these guys, there is nothing negative to say about them. They are both great players, and both of these guys should be elite players for our Dynasty rosters. If you want a little bit more safety, guaranteed production, maybe you say, I want Puka Nacua. If you want a high ceiling, maybe you go Garrett Wilson. If you want both, I think both of those guys kind of fit both of those bills as well. So nothing negative to say about these guys. And I think these guys are both going to be top 6, top 7 Dynasty Cornerstone wide receivers in today's market. So these guys are awesome players. Now let's go on to the S tier. And yes, there's going to be some controversy because I think some people are going to be offended by this, but Marvin Harrison Jr., he is going to be the first player in this S tier. The second player in this S tier is going to be Amon-Ra St. Brown. Then we are going to have Ja'Marr Chase. Then we are going to have CeeDee Lamb. And then we are going to have Justin Jefferson. So these are the top 5 assets at the wide receiver position that I believe are can't miss dominant wide receiver ones for fantasy football for the next 4-5 type of years. These guys are going to be elite. They're going to remain elite, and they're going to be elite for a long time. Justin Jefferson, we don't got to talk about what he's done. He just got a bag. He is going to be what Justin Jefferson has been, and that is going to be one of the best assets in fantasy football, period. Doesn't even matter about the position. CeeDee Lamb takes a step forward. Dominant asset. I still expect him to get a bag here soon. If he hasn't got it already, I'm recording this about a week before you're seeing it because I'm on vacation. So maybe he's already gotten a bag by now. I expect him to get the bag if he hasn't. So Ja'Marr Chase, same thing. He's going to be tied to Joe Burrow. Amon-Ra St. Brown just got a bag. Going to be tied as the number 1 option in this Detroit Lions offense. These guys have shown us nothing but dominance at the NFL level. I think all of these guys are guys that we don't have to talk about too much. You know why they are where they are. And that was the order that I would have them in. Jefferson, Lamb, Chase, Brown. Now, Marvin Harrison Jr., the reason why he is going to be in this top 5 and the reason why I think he is an S tier type of talent is we've heard the narrative, generational wide receiver. We know who his dad is. It doesn't really matter at this point. The talent on the field speaks for itself. You put him in a situation here where he goes to Arizona. He is going to be tied to Kyler Murray for the foreseeable future. He is going to have the massive target share that we've talked about for guys like London, guys like Nacua, guys like Nabers, all of that, plus you get the talent, the pedigree, the draft capital, and the youth of Marvin Harrison Jr. I think that, yes, it may be premature to throw him in this S tier. This is where I believe he is going to be. If he is not here for you already, I have a good assumption that he is going to be here by this time next year. I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is the real deal. He will be one of these top 5 assets that we talk about for many of years for the foreseeable future. So yes, I know some people are going to be offended that Marvin is above Puka. Marvin is above, whoever your favorite wide receiver is in this tier list. But I think that is the ceiling of a guy like Marvin Harrison Jr. And I think the floor is pretty damn high for him as well. I just love everything about Marvin Harrison Jr.'s game. And I'm willing to buy into him right now as I view him as an S tier asset already. So yeah, man, give me Marvin Harrison Jr. here in this S tier. Now that is all I have for you guys today. So if you did enjoy the video, go ahead and hit that like button. Also, make sure you guys are subscribed to this channel. If you haven't seen the quarterback or the running back videos, you guys can go check those out. Just go over to our page, go to the Dynasty tab. You guys can see all of our Dynasty videos right there. The Cornerstones will be right there for you to see. So go check those out. Also, make sure you are a member of the Discord. And more importantly, let me know what you guys think of these rankings down below. Interested to hear your thoughts. What would you change? What would you do differently? What do you agree with? And I'll see you guys on our next episode. But until then, peace out.